Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nashasayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamasloke Bhagavate Bhavati Nishiti. All that is almost completely destroyed, and loving service in the personality of God, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana-Timirandasya Jnana-Jana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes to the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Hare Krishna, good morning.
Good morning.
We have few people here who are joining us for the first time, I think. Can we just get to know your names if that's okay?
Sure.
Varad? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Narayan. Hare Krishna. Narayan, he is my very dear friend. He's my brother actually. But ever since he got a girlfriend, he forgot about me. That's okay. So we're at the end of Kartik pretty much. There's only a few days left until the full moon. And so you guys are very lucky to attend this. Sir. So you guys are actually very lucky to attend this because you just made it in time. It's the most auspicious month to attend such processes and such sessions. So very special place in Srimad Bhagavatam where we are right now. For those of you who don't know, everyone knows Bhagavad Gita, which is more like philosophical. It's Krishna's instructions to Arjuna, through Arjuna to us. Srimad Bhagavatam, however, is his pastimes. So it's more like an expansion on how do you understand Krishna's instructions better. And also an opportunity to dwell into the pastimes, the leelas, the stories of the Lord, in many sweet nectarian leelas that he demonstrated. So it's a good opportunity for us because especially right now where we are in Bhagavatam is Canto 10, where Krishna himself has entered. And what's happening right now is Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva have met. And there's some exchange of concerns. Like, of course, Vasudeva is concerned about Krishna's safety, but Nanda Maharaj is reassuring him. And then Nanda Maharaj conducts a ceremony where the child is named, and so on and so forth. So we'll read the translations from text 1 of chapter 5 to 19, right? And then we'll expand on verse 7. We'll read it together. Translations. Oh no, one by one, sorry.
Text 1, 2. Sukadeva Goswami said, Nanda Maharaj was naturally very magnanimous. And when Lord Shri Krishna appeared as his son, he was overwhelmed with jubilation. Therefore, after bathing and purifying himself and dressing himself properly, he invited Brahmanas who knew how to recite Vedic mantras. After having these qualified Brahmanas recite auspicious Vedic hymns, he arranged to have a Vedic birth ceremony celebrated for his newborn child according to the rules and regulations. And he also arranged for worship of the demigods and forefathers.
Nand Maharaj gave 2 million cows completely decorated with clothes and jewels and chariot to the Brahmanas. He also gave them 7 hills of grain covered with jewels and with clothes decorated with gold embroidery.
O king, by the passing of time, land and other material possessions are purified. By bathing, the body is purified, and by being cleansed, unclean things are purified. By purificatory ceremonies, birth is purified. By austerity, the senses are purified. And by worship and charity offered to the Brahmanas, material possessions are purified. By satisfaction, the mind is purified. And by self-realization, or Krishna consciousness, the soul is purified.
The Brahmanas recited auspicious Vedic hymns, which purified the environment by their irony. The experts in reciting old histories like the Puranas, the experts in reciting the histories of royal families, and general reciters all chanted, while singers sang, and many kinds of musical instruments like bidis and dundubis played a lead accompaniment.
Therefore, the resident of Nand Maharaj was fully decorated with varieties of festoons and flags, and at different places gates were made with varieties of flower garlands, pieces of cloth and metal leaves. The courtyards, the gates near the road, and everything within the rooms of the houses were perfectly swept and washed with water.
Text 7. The cows, the bulls, and the calves were thoroughly smeared with a mixture of turmeric and oil, mixed with varieties of manure. Their heads were
Bedecked
with peacock feathers, and they were garlanded and covered with cloth and golden ornaments.
Text 8. O King Parikshit, the cowherd men dressed very opulently with valuable ornaments and garments such as coats and turbans. Decorated in this way and carrying various presentations in their hands, they approached the house of Nanda Maharaj.
The gopi wives of the cowherd men were very pleased to hear that Mother Yashoda had given birth to a son, and they began to decorate themselves very nicely with proper dresses, ornaments, black ointment for the eyes, and so on.
Their lotus-like face extraordinarily beautiful, being decorated with saffron and newly ground kumkum. The wives of cowherd men hurried to the house of Mother Yashoda with presentations in their hands. Because of natural beauty, the wives had full hips and full breasts, which moved as they hurried along.
Text 11. In the ears of the gopis were brilliantly polished jewel earrings, and from their necks hung metal lockets. Their hands were decorated with bangles. Their dresses were of varied colors, and from their hair flowers fell onto the street like showers. Thus, by going to the house of Nanda Maharaj, the gopis, their earrings, breasts, and garlands moving were brilliantly beautiful.
Text 12. Offering blessings to the newborn child Krishna, the wives and daughters of the cowherd men said, "May you become the king of Raja and long maintain all its inhabitants." They sprinkled a mixture of turmeric powder, oil, and water upon the birthless flavor and offered their prayers.
Now that the all-pervading, unlimited Lord Krishna, the master of the cosmic manifestation, had arrived within the estate of Maharaj Nanda, various types of musical instruments resounded to celebrate the great festival.
In gladness, the cowherd men enjoyed the great festival by splashing Maharaj's body with a mixture of condensed milk, butter, and water. They threw butter on one another and sprayed it on one another's body.
The great-minded Maharaj Nanda gave clothing, ornaments, and cows in charity to the cowherded men in order to please Lord Vishnu. And thus he improved the condition of his own son in all respects. He distributed charity to the sutas and madgadas and vindas, and men of all other profession according to their education qualification, and satisfied everyone's desires.
The most fortunate Rohini, the mother of Bhakta, was honored by Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, and thus she also dressed gorgeously and decorated herself with necklace, a garland, and other ornaments. She was busy wandering here and there to receive the women who were guests at the festival.
Text 18. O Maharaj Pariksit, the home of Nand Maharaj is generally the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his transcendental qualities, and is therefore always naturally endowed with the opulence of all wealth. Yet, beginning from Lord Krishna's appearance there, it became the place for the pastimes of the goddess of fortune.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So there is a lot going on here, and I wonder if you all could visualize the events that were happening. There's celebration happening. They're throwing around butter and they're blaming Krishna for creating such a culture. That's bad. And we'll expand on text 7 first, and then we'll speak further. I don't know if I can recite that. Kavo Rishavat Satra Haridra Taila Rushitha Vichitra Dhatu Bahasrag Vastra Kanchana Malinaha
Gavo Vrishavatstara.
Gavo Rishavastara. You read the second line. Haridra. Haridra Taila Rushita. Vichitra. Vichitra Dhatu Bharsara. Vastra. There's just so many people, so maybe those who have come here for the first time, only you will recite the Sanskrit. You get the opportunity, okay? Can you read the first line? Gavo. Gavo Rishavastara. Haridra Taila Rushita. Vichitra Dhatu Barhasrag. Gentlemen, with the hat. Kanchana. Vastra Kanchana Malina. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Word to word. Gava, the cows. Risha, the bulls. Vatsatara, the cows. Haridra, with a mixture of turmeric, thyla, and oil. Rushita, the entire body smeared. Vichitra, decorative varieties of dhatu, colored minerals. Barashra, peacock feathers, garlands. Vastra, clothes. Kanchana, golden ornaments. Malina, being decorated with garlands. We'll read the translation together. The cows, the bulls, and the calves were thoroughly smeared with a mixture of turmeric and oil, mixed with varieties of minerals. Their heads were bedecked with peacock feathers, and they were garlanded and covered with cloth and golden ornaments. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'll read the purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has instructed in Bhagavad Gita 18.44, Krishi Go Raksha Vanij. That is, farming, cow protection, and trade are the qualities of works for the Vaishnavas. Nanda Maharaj, Vaishyas, forgive me. Nanda Maharaj belonged to the Vaishya community, the agriculturist community. How to protect the cows and how rich this community was are explained in these verses. We can hardly imagine that cows, bulls, and calves could be cared for so nicely and decorated so well with clothes and valuable golden ornaments. How happy they were. As described elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, during Maharaj Yudhishthir's times, the cows were so happy that they used to muddy the pasturing ground with milk. This is Indian civilization. Yet in the same place, India, Bharatvarsh, how much people are suffering by giving up the Vedic way of life and not understanding the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So even though I'm wearing a very bright costume, I am not knowledgeable about the subject, so I'll take everyone's help if I need for the matter. Plus it was super early, 2 months earlier that I was informed that I have to do this. So one of the qualities of a good writing is, as you're reading it, a good literature is that it kind of visualizes in your head, and you can almost imagine what's happening as you're reading it. And Srimad Bhagavatam is very balanced like that because it is a brilliant piece of literature. You can imagine all those scenes that are happening right in your head, especially what we read today. But at the same time, there's a lot of room for direct philosophy, so people don't misinterpret according to their whims and fancies and reduce it to a mundane level. So It's one of the books that I've studied. For those of you who don't have, you can always get a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam from us. I'll assist you if you need it later. So what's happening right now is what Prabhupada is especially focusing on cow protection and farming. So I'd like to focus on that in particular. Because what people know Bharatvarsha or India throughout the world is pretty much a land of cows. It's a kind of image that has been created. But people don't quite understand the depth of it. And why do we revere the cows so much? And it cannot be a coincidence that someone who owns the universe, the universes, when he chose to appear in our world, and also it's said that in his own eternal world, cows are very, very dear to him. So there has to be something special about the cows. We can take a look at it from the Shastric perspective. There are very clear mentions on how different demigods reside in different parts of a cow, and how worshipping just the cow give the results of all those worships and karmakandas and fruitive activities. So it's extremely auspicious. And it's also not a coincidence that how the mistreatment of cows and calves and the cattle is going around. The society is deteriorating on the side. It's very much an opinion of learned scholars that unless we turn this around and we focus on cow protection and treating them properly, the society cannot be a better place. And we can read it in this verse as well. And it's unfortunate because it's not that we don't know how to treat animals properly. My friend here, Narayan, he has a pet cat. What's the name? Happy. Come on. If I were you, I'd name her Kalu or something because she's very black. What I'm saying, that's also a very touchy topic these days. But what I'm saying is, dogs are treated like kings, right? They have a proper throne instead of just a regular bed. Just because you experience some love from them. But cows, not many people have been around them. The kind of love that they're able to reciprocate, because I know first-hand stories, and I've also spent some time with them in India and here, is just beyond thought. I'll share a tiny story with you. This is a first-hand story of someone they were sharing with me when I was in India, traveling around, not sure doing what. But there was this person who was telling me how the astrologer predicted when their mother was pregnant for them to be born paralyzed or without legs or something of the sort, ultimately disabled. And there used to be a cow in front of their house, and the person would go every day and take care of the cow, the pregnant mother, cross them, pet them is an appropriate word, but sort of pet them, take care of them. And the cow used to cry for no reason. And very surprisingly, when the child was born, they were born quite fine. But when the calf was born, they were born with legs not working. So it's like she took the karma upon herself. So Mother Cow is just very, very compassionate. And if those of you who've experienced some degree of closeness to them, if you've taken care of them, you'd notice almost your weight to be kilograms lighter after you spend some time with them. Has anyone ever noticed such a thing? A few of you have been lucky to experience that. And it's actually true. You feel much lighter. Now, I don't have any sources, but I have to tell you that it is said that when your japa starts to go deeper, and with Krishna's mercy and Guru's grace, if you start to actually see things, one of the symptoms or one of the signs that you're progressing is that you can see a cow. And if that starts to happen, that means going the right way. Of course, don't try to imagine things in your japa chanting. That's the worst thing you can do. But cow is that special to us, and especially for those who are connected to Krishna. There are stories from Raja, maybe if anyone can share a tiny one, where Krishna is doing things like he's even taking their cow dung, the dung of the cow, which is basically their excretion, and putting it on his face as a decoration. So the one who rules the universe, Hare Krishna, just give them a seat. Who was sharing such a story with me the other day? One of you folks was. Okay. You refused to share with everyone. Who? You were sharing? like of Vraja Leelas, where Krishna is quite literally using the dung of the cow as like facial decoration and whatnot.
After Krishna, past time.
There are quite a few mentions in the pastimes. I think it was also when I was hearing a class by His Holiness Indradumna Swami Maharaj where he was talking about it. It's just very full of nectar. But I also want to give you a little bit perspective of the science, of modern day science about how cows are special. Maybe some of you are aware of it because it's common knowledge now. That there are, in the cow milk, in dairy, there are two types of proteins primarily, which is A1 and A2. Now it's become a cultural fad, so people are aware of. But it is only the Indian cow, the traditional cow, the Gir cow, and other desi or traditional varieties, which when they give the milk, it has A2 type of protein. That's just a name they've given to protein. Otherwise, the Jersey cows, which are here in North America and wherever, who through generations have been interbred artificially, and so to produce more and more milk. So this is just not quite natural here. They produce A1 milk protein. And if you compare the difference, A2 milk protein is very easy to digest. It actually gives you a lot of strength, vitality, brightens up your face as you used to consume it. So if you go on your Amazon or wherever you do online shopping, you'll find A2 dairy ghee, A2 milk and whatnot, which will be 4 times the price than regular because you have to treat the cows in a proper way, have to get milk out in a very natural way. And it has to be a pure Gir cow or a desi cow, or an Indian variety, and only then you get some good A2 milk. And excuse me?
I was just saying that's $20 for 2 liters.
$20 for 2 liters. That's because, see, the price is impacted by the market demand. People don't even know about it. That's why it's expensive. But actually, it's worthless. Was that correct English? Yeah, it's priceless.
Yeah, priceless.
Hare Krishna. So, there is a very dear friend of mine who was not able to digest milk for a long time, especially when they moved to Canada, because there's something wrong here. They inject the animals with a lot of even hormones, so they produce more and more milk. So people develop resistance to dairies when they come here. It's a very common theme. And then this person switched to A2 milk, and then they were doing quite fine after a while. Of course, if your pockets can afford it, but hopefully one day. And Srila Prabhupada's vision was very much to ultimately, yes, distribute books and everything to establish Krishna consciousness, but also to move societies to Varnashrama arrangement, where the society is divided into proper stages. It starts from Balyavastha to Brahmacharya ashrama, to, if you want, you get married and you move into a grihastha life, or you can become a sannyasi if you get permission from your guru. And then later on, in your later stages of life, you transition into, Vanaprastha, which is you pretty much stay away from the society closer to forests. At the time, forests were abundant. Now, good luck if you want to try to find forests. But that's the thing about this arrangement, because this is just so natural and in sync with nature, that society should go back to it. And of course, the scriptures do share that as the age of Kali, the dark ages progress, as they are right now, it'll be very hard and ultimately almost just impossible to establish the Varnashrama society. So oftentimes devotees find themselves in confusion because what do I do? Right? If I have to spend my life trying to create Varna Ashrama system, but I know the age of Kali is progressing, so it won't perhaps even be successful. So that's kind of a dilemma that devotees face. But then it doesn't matter. It is our dharma for those who know the value of it, to offer it to people, to put in their lives into the yajna of trying to establish it. And I've heard it from Srila Prabhupada devotees. One, I suck at names. This devotee who came from Sharnagathi, close to Vancouver, and stayed with us for a while. I went to Gir Farms with him. And Nityananda Prabhu, do you remember his name? Is Nityananda here?
Yeah, yeah.
You remember the Prabhu's name? We went to Gir Farms with? One who takes care of cows? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Prabhu. But he shared so many details of how Srila Prabhupada spoke elaborately about Varnashrama system and taking care of cows in particular. And yet, unfortunately, because we're in cities, we get to spend very less time with them. I must also share with you some of the observations from scientists, and there is a branch of United Nations which is about soil conservation in particular. And what they share is, and I've done quite a bit of research in it, is that the organic content of soil is just reducing day and age, like day and day by every month, because we're using artificial methods. How we do farming these days is we just put in fertilizers. It's more like you're feeding people supplements. You're not feeding them food. So if you eat food and I just give you supplement for just 4 pills 4 times a day, yes, you will get all the nutrition, all those protein powders and whatnot, but something will for sure be lacking. And that's what we're doing to the food that we're eating. So imagine what kind of food are we eating? How nutritious can it be? How much life force and positivity must it really have? Or actually, it doesn't. So that's because, first of all, we took off all the cows from the farms. Now it's all machines. There's no dung. There's no proper natural manure that is happening. There's no trees around the periphery of the farm where the leaves are falling and they degrade into the natural manure, right? So it's just very unfortunate, the kind of food that we're eating throughout the world. India is not immune to this. But the United Nations Soil Conservation Body predicts that if this rate of soil degradation goes on, then in perhaps 50 years, we won't even be farming. It's just artificially produced foods and lab stuff is what we're going to be eating. And the Varnashrama arrangement is a direct antidote to such problem. So those of you who go to universities, those of you who speak to people, wherever you get opportunity, you must tell people about the Varnashrama system and how it is actually a solution to the problem. Besides, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, I think it's also mentioned in the scriptures that there's going to be a 10,000 year round golden age, even within the Kali Yuga, where dharma will still be upheld. And our entire movement of Krishna consciousness, the endeavor of Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, to establish such temples is to just propel the world towards those 10,000 years of a better time in such dark ages. And cow protection and cow worship and taking care of them, natural agriculture is very much a deep part of it.
Yeah, so I had a question.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, the table here. Is it not like some people believe this is bringing back the caste system? Brahmanas are top and then
What you put that for?
and then Vaishya and then Shudras.
Okay, I'll talk about it. We actually, what I was talking about, more like Grihastha to Brahmacharya and those kind of stages, not essentially the society's classification according to the qualities. But since it's here, we should address it because it's a misnomer. In fact, on Halloween night, we were out there just chanting Lord's name, doing Hare Krishna Kirtan on the Young and Dundas Square. Where our faces were face painted and everything. It was such a good time. You guys should join us for one of those kirtans sometimes. It's a lot of fun. So there I was approaching someone, offering them some book, and the other person, they started to argue with me that Hinduism is just casteism, and you guys have all these divisions among people, and you treat so-called lower castes poorly. Well, I had to tell them that different societies, according to different circumstances, create social barriers everywhere in the world. So it's not just that India or ancient India has had such problems. And also it has not been throughout, right? There are stories in our Shastras which clearly demonstrate that people have been upheld to certain positions just on the basis of their qualities and not necessarily on birth. Krishna very clearly in Bhagavad Gita states that the classification of society is based on gunas and qualities of people and their temperament and what are they naturally inclined towards, and not alone on the basis of birth. In fact, birth is such a tiny part of the picture, especially in today's world, because there's a interbreeding which has happened across different communities and everything. Also, please understand that today if you want to learn some skill, you can go online and you can learn it. You can go enrolled at a trade school or something and learn something. But traditionally, it is through parents and close-knit communities that the skills were transferred throughout generations. So if a particular community is very skilled, at jewelry making, they'll teach the children of the community jewelry making, and that's how you preserve the art. It'll keep on going for generations after generation, right? And at some point, it was misinterpreted in the society, and the picture was brought in that those who are doing a particular kind of activity, they are superior than others, and discrimination picture came in. But it was not discriminatory, the entire classification. In fact, if you think you can have a society without Shudras, people who serve every other classes, it's impossible. You can't have this building constructed without those who put in the labor effort of putting things together. But of course, you need those people who will guide everyone, who will plan things out. And those two people cannot be of the same temperament and ability. I know that I'm extremely bad at some of the things. I'm not skilled at some of the things. And if a society is encouraging those things to be a higher value, I cannot expect them to treat me be very reverential to me because I don't know those skills which are society values. So Brahmanas in particular, they were involved in scripture reading, guiding people towards spirituality. And the ancient Indian society was very much directed towards spirituality. It was not a materialistic society. So naturally, they valued Brahmanas more than others. And there's nothing wrong in that. But that doesn't mean that it should be a discriminatory process where you divide other community and other groups of resources. That was an extremely process that unfortunately happened with time. But there have been people like Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Lord Krishna himself, who made sure to remove such classifications from society. So if anyone ever says, and thank you for asking that question, Hinduism is casteist in principle, just let them know politely, no, you're mistaken. Maybe you're reading a Western commentary on Indian culture. You need to hear it from someone who genuinely knows, like Srila Prabhupada. And also, I'm not very comfortable with the words Aryan and non-Aryans, because in the Shastra it's used in a very different way, but Western people interpret it just very wrongly. So that's the stage that we're talking about. I can give you my example. Not a month back, I was I don't know what state because right now it's all mixed up. I was probably a grihastha, or I don't know what I was. But I was not necessarily wearing this costume. Saffron colors, very respectful. But I was heading out to work, was wearing all kinds of colors like you guys too. But due to some understanding, I realized this is the time for me to transition into what is called a brahmacharya ashrama. So that's a stage of life that everyone dedicatedly moved towards. In fact, you might have heard of stories from Lord Krishna and his friend Sudama at an ashram of Rishi Sandipani, Munir Sandipani, right? Sandipani. So, was Lord a grihastha staying in the ashram at the time? Was Krishna? Krishna was a brahmachari, right? So people get scared sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, because there's this scare this fear among the Indian population in general that they're scared of those who are in saffron clothes, or they think, "Oh, I won't let my child speak to them because what if they convince them to take such clothes up?" Well, the gods that you worship in the temple, they took such clothes up when they were playing their parts in the societies for Leela. Right? Lord Ram, he went with Lakshmana, with I think Vishwamitra in the forest. Huh? Vishwamitra in the forest. What clothes was he wearing then? So there's societies, but it's our responsibility for those who know a little better to inform people, to educate them. Coming back to cows. So they've played a very, very important role in taking care of our soil, and ultimately that takes care of our crops, and then that takes care of our health. Our forefathers, our ancestors, people who were very much in touch with nature, they knew all these things organically. So that's why also they worshipped cows, they revered them, they respected them, because they knew that if the cows will be off the farms, somehow they knew it. Maybe they didn't know the science of it, but somehow they knew that if they'll be off the farms, there'll be no farms in some time, there'll be no crops in some time. And that's happening today in the world. It's also very interestingly mentioned here. It's a side note, but Maharaj Yudhishthira's time, the cows were so happy that they used to muddy the pasturing ground with milk. This is Indian civilization, Srila Prabhupada says, Jai. This is Indian civilization, if you look at it. Because there are stories about how you would till the farm with milk, and people just couldn't understand it. Like, how rich can a land be? But the land was very rich because all the principles were upheld. There was yagyas regularly performed. There was deity worship, and everything just in proper methodology. So naturally, nature was very much in sync. How many of you have been to villages or just far away from big cities? Quite a few of you. That's such a good news. I haven't had such a fortune of a long-standed. There are periods that I lived for a year, or if I would visit my grandmother sometimes, but not so much. If you ever notice village folks, there's one particular thing about how they sit. Have you noticed them? They'll just squat down, and they're sitting like this. Am I allowed to demonstrate it? No, this is Vyasasana or something, right? Okay. Yes, anyone demonstrate?
I can also do it, but
I want you to visualize it.
this is something.
Yes, exactly. Like this. They'll be sitting like this. And if in the afternoon time, after they've done their field work, Hare Krishna, and whatever not, they're just sitting like that. And if you go to them, you ask them, what are you doing? They'll be like, why are you sitting like this? And they're not necessarily spiritual even right now. Imagine what can they achieve when they start to chant Lord's name. They're so much in touch with nature. They're barefoot, in touch with ground. They're not overthinking life. They're actually living the real life. We go through a situation and then we make 20 versions of it in our head. And we overthink it 100 times. And then we think we're living life. No, we're living our mind. Congratulations. But those people, in those villages, can you ever sit just like this? What are you doing? Just sitting. What's happening? Nothing. So whenever I notice them, they always catch my attention because I'm always able to recognize that I'm not even close to them in just my personality. And how simple they are, how beautiful. They are not dressed in very elaborate ornaments and jewelry and whatnot. Here they are. Well, everyone likes to celebrate in this community. Nanda Maharaj is definitely pampered. They're gwalas. But these people are dressed so simply in villages if you go. And they seem so content. Of course, as you move away from those pasturing grounds and farmlands, you realize that you have to put up a lot of show to try to show it to the world that you're content. And that's what's happening in the cities. Okay. So it's not about being Indian civilization. This is how civilization should be. It is the only way to be civil. Otherwise, all of the uncivilized elements of enmity and whatnot will come into the picture in a society which is unnatural. So it is our responsibility, as I said, for those of us who know better, to first of all imbibe it in us, all these values, and then offer it to others as much as we can, wherever we get the opportunity. Hare Krishna. We have a few minutes for if anyone has any feedback or any questions. No questions? You.
So, talk about cow protection and Brahmacharya ashram, ashram. Also, about Brahmanas, Kshatriyas. So, I was wondering if some people are Grastas or they're like Brahmanas. If not Brahmanas, they're Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. Are they allowed to read scriptures, or like how they can read? Because they don't have that caliber. If Kshatriyas, they are fighters, and Brahmanas cannot fight. Kshatriyas. So how they can learn scripture? What is the ultimate goal of all these Brahmacharya ashram, Grihastha ashram, Vanprastha ashram?
Okay.
Why?
It's a very good question. I know what you want me to say. Hare Krishna. But see, I'll answer that. Yes, in today's modern day and age, at least immediately, you cannot have a society where very particularly we're following someone is a dedicated Kshatriya and whatnot. And anyway, if you have Kshatriya-like or warrior-like or protection-like tendencies, you can't protect your friends. You're not allowed to have a gun, at least not in Canada. So even if someone's attacking, you're supposed to call the police, just so you know it's legal requirement. You can't defend yourself. But in spite of everything else, and the ultimate goal of whoever's in whichever ashrama, brahmacharya and whatnot, is to ultimately find who they are, which is that they are a soul. And then what is their relationship with that which is the source of the soul, which is Krishna. So that can always happen in every day and age, because we have a fantastic tool with us, which is the name of the Lord. Now, can anyone who's not a Brahmana read scriptures? So some of the scriptures are very complex. If you try to approach them directly, you may not understand, and worse, you can end up having misinterpreting them. Especially some of the sweet pastimes of Vrindavan Dham. It's said that you should not touch them until you really, really establish a very strong sense of maryada in you. That's why Sri Ram's comes first, and then comes Krishna. Discipline and honesty first, and then talk about love. Forget about experiencing love. So, but there are scriptures. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharma prajate mamekam sharanam raja. So he's clearly saying, drop all the forms of worship, religion, and everything, and just surrender unto me. And through surrender to Krishna, because he's complete, he's the source of everything, you actually get all the qualities and the fruits of every other worship that you'll ever do. Now, I am a big promoter of having a variety of worship in society because I like to see a colorful garden. And it's not that you should not do certain other fruitive activities. In fact, we perform yagyas here when the annual Rath Yatra happened in Toronto this year. How many of you attended our Jagannath Rath Yatra? Almost all of you. Beautiful. Those of you who couldn't, you should come. It's summarily happening next time. It's just fantastic. So Rath Yatra, we did a yagya for protection first. Now, is that karmakanda or is that something done towards a particular, is that worship or not? It depends on subjectivity. What are you doing it for? If you're doing it ultimately for Rath Yatra to go well and to get more and more people connected to spirituality, then it is not a fruitive activity. It is a spiritual activity, right? What I'm trying to say is, no matter which ashrama one must fall under, and for those of you who may have tendencies to be very warrior-like and spirited, but you have to go out and do a teaching job, for example, which is somewhat related to Brahmanical tendencies, you can still read Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is for all. And chant. We can chant once for those of you who don't know, but all of you know. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It's a very simple chant. All you have to do is you get a bead ideally, but you can just do it like that also and just chant on it. 108 times is one round. It doesn't take much, 10 minutes maybe or less. So that's for everyone. And there are complex scriptures which you should approach through a bona fide spiritual master, through someone who's learned it from those who know it better. Like Srimad Bhagavatam, for instance, is best that you don't just pick it up and start reading for yourself. But here, Srila Prabhupada is present in form of his purports and explanations. So any book from Srila Prabhupada, you can start to read it by yourselves. But if you start to go into very big scriptures, this is the biggest. What I'm saying is something which has not, the scripture which has not had the fortune of having a great soul like Srila Prabhupada translate them. Those scriptures is best. They're approached through a very methodological process. So Bhagavad Gita, we have it for you. We'll give it to you if you don't have it. You must take it. You must do the Swadhyaya, which is by yourself, so you should read it. Because Prabhupada is guiding you in his words. Any other question? Yes, Prabhu.
So, like when you were explaining about those village people and how they live with so simply and they're just sitting but they are fulfilled. So I want to ask, so how do you define the line between is it just existing, are you just existing or are you living? And how do you know that?
Well, that's a good question. Do you know you exist right now? Are you sure?
Yeah, but am I just existing or am I living?
Get you. It's more about, am I just living or am I thriving in life? Am I doing something? Is it just I'm going to live and die, or am I doing something more purposeful? Is that what you're trying to?
Yeah, because there was a lecture by Vishesh on this, and so I always had this as to how do we define what's living, and when we say, because that also varies from person to person, but what's the
Okay.
scriptural way to see it?
You're asking a child practically about all this, but 'cause I'm not that smart with all this. But I have to tell you that that's what my heart says. Is because I've seen it happening to people. That even when they succeed materially and they're having a very thriving life, but if they're not connected to spirituality, if they're not connected to Krishna, something's just missing in them. It's not content. They just don't feel satisfied ultimately. But there are people here, and we don't even have to think about Sri Vrindavan Dham, where these people may not be doing very well. Maybe they have issues with their job, and here in Canada, their immigration and whatnot, with their schools and whatnot. But if they experience a moment in the kirtan or in their chanting, and that moment feels like infinity, because in that moment you're just content, and you're complete, and you don't want anything else but the time to stop if it can. And there are those moments which bhaktas, with devotees, they do experience. We're not talking about an outer space experience here. So if you are progressing towards such moments of contentment, even if they happen once a month, even if they happen once in a few weeks, that means you are progressing towards living and not just barely existing. But even if you're a millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire, call it what you want, you're still in a mode of ignorance because you don't know the reality of yourself. These people who are hogging up things, they're filling their houses and castles with so many things. They think they'll live forever. Maybe they should visit a cremation ground to see that they'll die one day too. They're not in touch with the reality. So we cannot think, and I don't want to take any names here, but very popular billionaire and whatnot people, they think they'll be here forever. They're dissatisfied with the earth. They want to create a colony on Mars. Right? And do you think there's ever satisfaction in such a material pursuit? Where you have castles, not homes here on earth. And they're thinking about going to Mars then. They're not satisfied being the king of the world here. You think the kings and queens of England were satisfied when they took over the entire world? They were still fighting world wars. We have Sputnik and whatnot and space stations outside. Because we're trying to go out to the space, we're not satisfied. Because satisfaction cannot come with outer endeavors and the external activities. It is an internal job, and it has to be dharmic, it has to be according to Shastras. And if you are in touch with that, you are living and thriving. No matter how much your material activities seem to be a little unstable right now. And that's what I could tell you. I don't even know if I answered your question. Hare Krishna. No more questions? There are hungry folks in here who will kill me if I won't send them. Okay.
Great class.
If you can join us for